Once again, in this section, I will describe what a typical long-term care facility is, and I will provide you a little bit of history as the evolution of the long-term care facility. Before the OBRA law of 1987, the long-term care facilities were pretty much what they called a home, a nursing home. And back before the OBRA law, the residents would be admitted into a facility without knowing ever if they were actually going home. So therefore, long-term care facilities were pretty much a permanent residence for these residents. And many times they feared going into long-term care facilities because they knew they were going in there and did not have an expected day to go back home. So some of the older residents, even today, when they hear about nursing homes, they kind of are afraid of a long-term care facility or a nursing home. So for that reason, some of the nursing homes have changed their name to rehab centers, getting away from that nursing home name. Now, with OBRA, a lot of rights of the residents were now being enforced. With that being said, a lot of services that were not previously provided for residents were now expected to be delivered on a timely basis. So after the OBRA law was passed, facilities were now evolving. As they had to provide new services, they started to add more services. Instead of hindering the nursing home, it actually benefited the resident. The resident was now expected to have a high level of wellness, to live their life as fully as possible, just like as if they were in their own home. So what kind of services are provided in a typical long-term care facility? The assistance with ADLs. ADL stands for Activity of Daily Living. So residents are assisted on a need basis. If a resident can perform an activity independently, safely, then they do not need assistance with that. For example, if they can move their arms and feed themselves, then they are to be unassisted. All right? Now, if the resident cannot move their arms or their hands are impaired from a condition and they're unable to feed themselves, then the nursing staff is expected to assist that resident. But the state of Texas prohibits staff from assisting residents who can perform some activities independently. That is actually would be considered a deficiency. So therefore, if a resident can feed himself or herself and a nursing assistant is noted feeding this resident, that would be considered a deficiency as per the state of Texas regulations. Other services that are provided are assistance with personal care, physical, occupational, speech, skilled services, wound care treatment. If a patient comes in with a ulcer or any type of surgical wound or unexpected wound, wound care services are expected to be provided. Care of different tubes. Residents sometimes require some indwelling tubes such as urinary catheters or feeding tubes. This care for these kinds of tubes is also provided by skilled nurses. Nutrition therapy. Residents are expected to maintain a high level of wellness, and that includes proper nutrition. For that reason, long-term care facilities are expected to not only provide services of a registered dietitian, but also maintain and keep a log of the residents' nutritional input and output. So that is also provided. Some of the changes that have occurred as a result of OBRA is a culture change. Before OBRA, the healthcare team was used to working independently. Everybody would care for their own assignment of residents and would not participate or assist others on a need basis. So the culture of working independently has changed to more of a team effort. Why? Because residents deserve better care. If one person isn't able to attend a resident, one of their residents on their assignment, then does that mean that that resident will have to wait for assistance? No. What it means is that every resident is everybody's patient or resident. So if another nursing assistant can provide the services, then they should go to attend to that resident. So it's not one group of residents to one nurse assistant, but Every resident is everybody's nurse assistant, and that's part of the culture change that has been transforming for the better the long-term care facilities. Another change that the state of Texas has recently implemented is person-centered care. What does that mean? Well, it means that every resident is different, and we cannot provide the same type of activities for every resident. For example, if a resident enjoys playing bingo, then they should go ahead and attend that activity. But if there is another resident who cannot sit in a chair, who does not understand what bingo is, then that resident should be provided a different type of activity, either listening to radio, watching television, or whatever applies to that resident. But the state of Texas does not want a one blanket type of activity for every resident. If noted during their visits, this would also be considered a deficiency. Some of the culture changes that have also been implemented is the choice. The choice. Every resident has a choice, and many times we perform assistance without allowing the resident to make choices. For example, if a resident chooses to wear a certain kind of clothes, that overrides the decision of any healthcare personnel. You must listen to the choices. If the resident chooses not to participate in an activity, then that choice should be respected. Dignity is also very important. Dignity is what gives us our self-worth. Many times we forget that residents, even though if they cannot speak, we must still maintain their dignity. We must cover them. We must never uncover them or overexpose them when we are performing an activity of daily living, such as bathing. They are still human, and they are still worthy of their dignity. So we must protect their dignity. If you note that another healthcare team member is not performing that, then we must maintain their dignity. We must bring it to their attention. Respect is accepting others. Residents come from many cultures, from many beliefs, of religion, of many different kinds of ideas, different than ours. So for that reason, we are expected to accept them as they are. We are not there to judge their ideas or beliefs, their religion, their political views. We are there to assist them with their personal care and meet their healthcare needs. Therefore, we need to accept residents for who they are. They have the right to self-determination. Anytime they choose to leave the facility, they are entitled to do that. Of course, they must have to go through the discharge process, which will include an evaluation from their home setting where they intend to go home. But residents always have the right to self-determination. They have the right to purposeful living. If you put yourself in their position, would you like to be in a facility where you are not allowed to walk outside, to roam within the facility, in the building, to walk or ambulate in a wheelchair as you please? Then that is not right. You are not being allowed to live as purposeful or as meaningful as you would like to, just like as if you were home. All these benefits or services that a resident receives in a long-term care facility have to be funded. These services are not free, and we'll discuss the major payer sources for this in the next section.